the October 2nd, 2023 Village Council meeting. And Judy, if you could call in the roll.
All right, Housh.
I'm here.
Stokes.
Here.
McQueen.
Here.
DeVore Leonard.
Here.
Also present is Solicitor Amy Blankenship. We are expecting Carmen Brown.
Okay. And we are gonna, I guess, move into a session around
You need a motion?
a motion for moving into
Yep. So
Executive session.
I move that we move to executive session to discuss complaints against a public official.
All right. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Oh, I got to roll call you. So
We're
Housh.
gonna roll count? Yeah. Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yeah.
DeVore Leonard.
Yes.
Thank you. And Amy, you had wanted some specificity around who.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that council wants me present in the session. Is that
Yes.
general?
Yeah. So I think we're gonna have you. I think we're gonna have Judy, and yeah.
I think that's good.
Yeah, okay. Gavin, you good with that?
Just say yes.
Okay, cool.
Just say yes.
So Amy, I can scooch to wherever.
Yeah, I thought if we wanted to come down here, we can, and
Yep.
then you can just make sure we're off on that front.
All right, welcome to the October 2nd regular meeting of council. And Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Actually, we have roll called, but I do need a motion.
Oh, that's right, yeah, we're a motion to exit from executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
All those in favor?
aye. All
You
right,
can aye that one. And then
Okay.
if someone can make a motion to resume the regular meeting?
I move that we resume the regular meeting.
all right, I'll second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Our-
We do, I can see him. Yes, sorry.
Okay, all right, so we're going to move into announcements.
Actually, I'm going to make a motion as an elected member of Yellow Springs Village Council to remove Brian Housh from his position as council president. I believe this action is necessary for the following reasons. Council president has shown such signs of impairment that it's clear that he is no longer, at least at this point, in the position to hold the position as president.
I second that motion.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Well, I think before we vote, I'll
I'm sorry.
read my statement. And then, have no doubt about how the vote's going to go. Dear Yellow Springs community, I've always been open to talking with the YS News or any community member about my medical issues, but in the current situation, the only outreach was an email the day before publishing the paper from the editorialists about their piece, to which I replied with context. It is important to note that I take a medication for a physical condition that has a variety of side effects. And on a few occasions, I have either seemed out of it or intoxicated. I have letters from my 2 doctors responding to a request from my employer to explain my unusual behavior in a couple situations, which I'm happy to share. There is no indication that alcohol is a trigger, but I am avoiding alcohol consumption out of utmost caution until my medication issues are resolved. On August 24th, I can confirm that I had 2 drinks over a 2.5-hour period. I was not intoxicated, and when I got into my car, I felt fine. I quickly started not feeling fine and immediately parked and got out of my car. While these incidents come on quickly, I have learned to identify the situations of a medical emergency, which this situation was. I recognize that it is difficult for most to understand or empathize with.
Point of order.
What?
How long does council president intend on reading this statement, or can he make it available via email for people who would like to see it in print?
I think I can do that as well, but
Okay.
I'm almost done.
Okay, thanks.
For most to understand or empathize with physical or mental health effects that some people experience, I've never had a car accident or gotten a DUI, and I do not consume alcohol before meetings. Also, I've been completely consistent in my role on council, putting myself out there, talking on difficult issues, and making tough decisions in the interest of our residents and community. Certainly, this means that I'm not going to be liked by everyone, which current narratives reflect. I have learned that taking positions and action on issues comes with conflict and controversy. I'm not public enemy number one or a menace to society. No one did anything wrong in responding to my medical emergency. This is the behavior we expect, and unfortunately, in every situation has gone the way it should, which is why the village has put so much work into curating a police team that is properly trained and able to serve our community. If this situation had involved anyone else, I believe the reaction would be positive. Positive progress of the village over the last decade cannot be denied. We have proven to be resilient, a leader among municipalities in sustaining a high quality of life, which is a direct result of my leadership contribution. We would be even more successful with fewer spurious complaints, which ultimately distract people from the real work and are self-serving. I'm particularly concerned by the attitudes tied to justice that ultimately show a clear bias against individuals that have physical or mental medical conditions. Again, I recognize that part of the current reaction is because Brian Housh is involved, but I do wonder what precedent a small group of individuals with an obvious agenda might ultimately establish. I know many residents understand the smear campaign aspect of this situation, underscored by emotionally charged and exaggerated language being used to inaccurately embellish other situations. I've changed my medication, and this seems to be helping to resolve the issue with insomnia and feeling out of it. Given the blood pressure has played a role, I am focusing more on diet. I can say with confidence that my medical issues have not impacted my role as an elected official representing our village, which is clearly documented, and I encourage folks to keep that in mind when judging me. We need to continue to support highly effective council members, and that's what I've got to say.
Can we continue the voting process?
And that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a motion on the table. The motion is to remove Brian Housh as council president in summary. We have a second from Stokes. Brown,
Yes.
McQueen,
No.
Stokes,
Yes.
DeVore Leonard,
Yes.
Housh.
No.
Thank you. So I have 3-2. Motion carries.
I think it would be useful at this point if we could have a motion from someone on council to nominate someone to serve as president.
I move.
Who are you nominating?
What's that?
Who are you nominating to serve as president?
Kevin Stokes.
I need a second.
I can second that.
Thank you. Okay, that's the only motion for president. Okay, I will call the roll on that. McQueen.
I abstain.
Brown.
Yes.
DeVore Leonard.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Housh.
Yeah, I guess I'll abstain.
Okay. Again, the motion carries.
I'm not, yeah.
The charter does not require us to have a vice president. If council wants to nominate a vice president right now, you can.
Can you repeat that?
The charter does not require you to appoint a vice president. It only requires you to have a president of council. But it would be in keeping with how you normally handle this organizational process to nominate a vice president at this time.
I'd like to nominate Gavin DeVore Leonard as vice president.
Second.
All right. McQueen.
Abstain.
DeVore Leonard.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Housh?
I'll abstain.
Thank you. Again, the motion carries.
Thank you. Let me just say that this change we just made was not easy. I will speak personally. Excuse me, was not easy for me. But I felt that we, as a body, owed it to concerned village residents, staff, and ourselves as a body to just take a beat, take a moment, and address, all issues of concern wholeheartedly. It is my expectation that, Brian, that you will remain on council, and quite honestly, at some point, resume the presidency. I'm on record for saying that, Brian, I value your wisdom, your intelligence, your effectiveness as president, and I think others would echo that you've probably been the most effective council president that we've had in a while. And so I yield to your expertise in that regard. So I do expect this to be a temporary change. Of course, everyone is aware we'll have an election in a few weeks. And then if not sooner, we'll certainly reconvene in January to address President and Vice President at that time. So I fully expect us as a body and as village government to keep moving full steam ahead. We've got a lot of work to do, and I solicit understanding and respect. Brian has shared with us some of the details of his medical condition, and I would ask that the public respect that. Give us time to work through these issues. We ultimately are here for you, and we're doing what we're doing as we see the best to serve you, the voting public. If there are no other comments, okay.
I don't have any prepared statement, but as people noted, I voted no. I've been on council a while, and I see that people can get very upset about things. And sometimes the things that they get very upset about, from my point of view, aren't necessarily the most important things. I was actually disappointed with the article in the paper, and in regard to the Yellow Springs News, I really hope that some work will be done in the paper on issues that I think are really important. For example, why don't we have more what's stopping the broadband? Why don't we have more housing? I did a whole investigation with the police department, and no one from the paper ever talked to me about that. So I recognize we're in a position sitting up here. It doesn't really feel very powerful. Maybe it looks powerful because we're sitting over here. It doesn't feel powerful. But because we're in this position, we have to take people getting upset at us. And sometimes that's been directed at me personally, mostly not. But I really look forward to having this many people in our audience about a lot of other issues. We're getting ready to do the budget, for example. The budget's a huge thing. And I hope you all come when we have sessions on the budget, because that's really going to make a difference in terms of the community. So that's all.
Really quickly, medical issue, it's whatever the issue is, whether it is a medical issue. And that's important. We have all these stigmas surrounding certain medical issues that we should not have, but we do. And so I just wanted to get that out there. And it's important that people start to come to terms with and begin to understand that it's a whole thing. It's not a this thing or that thing. That's it.
Gavin, did you want to add anything before we move forward?
Sure, I can. First of all, to say for people that are in attendance, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. This is a long-standing work commitment that took me out of town. Yeah, I think it was important that we take action. I think there have been impacts on our work, and I think there are impacts on the sort of I don't know, the strength of the way that people feel about our body, about the council, about the village. And I think it was important that we acknowledge that. Yeah, I'm not sure if I have anything else to say right now. I guess I will just flag that there are obviously some other sort of dynamics that were flagged and raised in the news and in many communications that we received from constituents. So I don't know if it doesn't feel like now is the appropriate time to get into the broader context, but I look forward to more conversation about all the dynamics in the, I don't know, either the rest of this meeting, but certainly in meetings to come.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on. Announcements. Brian, I know you're the announcement king. So.
I do have a few things. So first of all, sunflowers, awesome. Thanks to the chamber and thanks to Tecumseh Land Trust. We were there yesterday. Yeah, it's awesome, and I love how well the safety component has been addressed. I did want to mention to council the Ohio Municipal League Conference, which unfortunately I cannot go to, is October 18th to 19th. Registration is by October 11th, and it's really a great thing to attend. So I would strongly encourage that. I'm not going to talk about that. Let's see. I'm not going to talk about participatory budgeting either. I did want to mention that the Partners for the Environment recently recognized Ellis Jacobs, and one of our longtime folks for his contributions to the environment. And also, when I saw Nick Budis there at the event, he mentioned that we wanted a tour of the power plant and what has been done, that he would love to do that. So I think that's a great idea. And yeah, I guess the other thing I wanted to mention is looks like October 21st, we're going to rock the stage. Is that right, Johnny? So we're going to support the Mud Run Conservancy here at the Village. And I think that's a great event for folks to be involved in. So thank you.
So Brian, the thing you said about Ellis Jacobs, was that what was in the, I felt there was something different in Sunday's Dayton Daily News. There was an article in Sunday's Dayton Daily News highlighting Ellis Jacobs. Also, Elizabeth Wiley was featured in this Sunday's Dayton Daily News about, her culinary expertise, and highlighting, I think it's Dayton Eats is the section.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Ellis Jacobs and Liz
Liz Wiley.
Yeah, because both Liz Valenti she was in the photo also. So
Yeah.
both Liz and Elizabeth, Liz and Wiley. So if you, I presume online or pick up a Sunday Dayton Daily News, or I'll make a copy of my and send it to you. So anyway, yeah. So we want to give a shout out to those folks when we see them. If you read the article. All right. Any other announcements? Alrighty. Good. Then we're moving on to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we just have one thing, which is the minutes of our last regular meeting. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second?
Okay, all in favor of approval of the minutes from September 18th meeting? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay. Alrighty, review of the agenda. Is there anything on the agenda that ought to be pulled off? And I do know, by the way, in reference to Mary Ann's comments, everyone's here, Brad, to hear you talk about the water treatment plant. So we're excited about that. So happy to have that on the agenda. But is there anything on the agenda that ought to be removed, or is there anything that should be added to the agenda?
Crickets.
Ooh, Judy. Darn crickets. Don't you love nature?
Beautiful.
All right, so while Judy's taking care of that, if there's any other comments or regarding review of the agenda? All right, moving on. I'll go ahead and take petitions and communications. There was one letter that I'm familiar with, Judy, just a letter from Gary Zaremsky regarding pedestrian crossings. It was a letter that he sent to us right before the last meeting, so it didn't get a chance to make the packet. But his letter talks about bicycle or pedestrian crossings and bicycle crossings and whatnot. So please take advantage of that. I wanted to ask Johnny a question about it. But we'll perhaps bring that up in the manager's report. Okay? Really? No legislation?
See?
No, try.
And we've passed the review of the agenda window has closed, so we have no legislation on the agenda, and we're not going to add any. So now we're at citizen concerns. So if there's anyone here, please wait to be recognized. But before you get up, yeah, yes. If there's anyone here that wants to present citizens' concerns about anything that's not on the agenda, you will be allowed 3 minutes to share your thoughts. Our clerk, Judy, will be the timekeeper. And anyone for citizens' concerns? Well, Marie Mitzi Miller stood up first, so I'll go ahead and let you go. Go ahead. Please identify yourself, your affiliation with the village, and share your thoughts.
Hi, my name is Mitzi Miller. I'm a resident of Yellow Springs. The Yellow Springs Community Action Project for Safe Sidewalks would like to thank the new village manager, Johnny Burns, and the maintenance staff for addressing the downtown area tree limb issue, the village right-of-way issues where tree limbs are hanging too low over the sidewalks, visual obstructions at stop signs caused by plants and bushes and trees that are either too high or overgrown, and cutting back tree limbs hanging over our streets that are hanging too low. Our group has surveyed sidewalks in the village and has shared this information with Johnny Burns. We feel the village should replace or repair safe routes to school, senior walking routes, downtown areas, ADA crosswalks, and severe sidewalk issues first. We also want to thank the village new zoning administrator, Meg Leatherman, for her fresh ideas and past job experience and knowledge. Already, she's developed a database to better track and keep records. Meg has shown a willingness to work together with our group. With the village, the Yellow Springs Community Action Project for Sidewalks, the Livable, Equitable, Friendly Yellow Springs, our business supports, And our residents and property owners, together, we'll make Yellow Springs a safer, walkable community for all pedestrians. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitzi. Cheryl, I think I saw you next.
Yes, Cheryl Durgan's Yellow Springs News. I'm disappointed. I am grossly disappointed with this village council. Well, not everyone on this village council, but several members. And let me just explain why. For months, we have heard countless rumors about Brian Housh. We have heard rumors about impairment. We have heard rumors about him, about the police calling, people calling the police with him laid out in the street. We have heard all of this for months, actually at this point, years. We have never once reported on anything related to that, despite the fact that we get countless people asking us to inquire about why it is there is a village council president that's laid out on the street in the middle of the sidewalk after leaving the Gulch. We have never once done anything related to reporting on any kind of rumors. We are honorable, and actually I empathize with you. I empathize with the fact that people are mad at you. Oh, boo-hoo, people are mad at us too, all the time. But this is a moment in which thank you very much, for council people who did the right thing at this moment. And let me just say something else. I don't know what obvious agenda there is. I have no idea what that means. I don't know what smear campaigns are out there. I don't know what, other than me being emotionally charged right now because I'm actually really effing mad, that you all have the audacity, some of you, to sit up here and say that the news we have a responsibility to our community to make sure that people have the right information. We did our due diligence. Don't you ever sit up here and say that we are not doing what we're supposed to be doing. Disappointed or not, do your job. I'm done.
Thank you for that, Cheryl. I thought I saw another hand over here. All right, please identify yourself and share your affiliation with the village.
Hey, what up, council? Some of you may know me. Sorry, my voice is a bit raspy right now. I know we got high tensions
Could you give
now.
your name? Some of us don't.
I know, yeah. My name's Andrew Morris.
Thank you.
I grew up here as a kid, and I raised thousands of dollars for our local skate park. I think we need a sign up on the fence again that says skate at your own risk. You know, because the insurance company demolished my skate park. I raised tons of money for it back in the day. I was out of town for about 5 years, and I cried when I saw that my skate park got torn down. And talking about the budget, I was wondering by like next May if we could get a mini ramp, or even some parking curbs with paint on it, just down at the park. And also we need strict guidelines and rules, so that way the insurance company that destroyed my skate park doesn't come back and destroy it again. So talking about the budget, I'm asking if you guys have at least $10,000 in that budget for our local skate park, and I digress.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Morris. Johnny, during the manager's report, if you don't mind sharing some of the background. I mean, I wasn't sure about the insurance implications and all that. Okay, thank you. Any other citizen concerns? All righty. Well, thank you all for being here. And now, the real reason you're all here. We have special reports. Brad, did you get my email? Yes. Okay, great, thanks. So, the Water Department, PFAS, or Forever Chemicals update. We have Brad Ault, the manager of the water treatment plant, or the water department head. So, the floor is yours.
All right, so I wanted to come here and just give you an update on the PFAS, or Forever Chemicals, kind of what we've done, what the EPA is going to start mandating, and what we plan to do. So first, Forever Chemicals are, if you want to go to the next slide, they are polyfluoroalkyl substances, better known as PFAS. They're a group of man-made chemicals, and they're in everyday goods to make things waterproof, stain-resistant, non-stick. They're also in firefighting foam. They have been tested heavily in bag microwave popcorn. I've been told one of the best things you can do is not eat microwavable popcorn. They're classified as a contaminant of emerging concern, meaning that research into the harm they may cause is still ongoing. The most common four are I'm just going to abbreviate them. They're PFOA, the PFOS, the PFHXS, and the PFNA. Those are the four most common chemicals that they study. Mm-hmm. The next slide. In March of this year, the EPA has proposed setting MCLs, which are maximum contaminant levels, and MCLGs, which are maximum contaminant level goals. They have the MCLs will be enforceable for the PFOA and PFOS. The other ones are health hazard indexes for combined chemicals of Gen X, PFBS, PFHXS, PFNA, and basically what's going to happen is they're going to set a limit that's probably going to go in effect at the end of this year or the beginning of next, and then usually a period of 3 years before you have to meet that limit.
Mm-hmm. So Brad, let me just, if you don't mind jumping in. Yeah. So those levels that would be set, as you said, end of this year, early next, is that just for the PFOA and PFOS? Yes. Okay. Yes. Just those. Okay.
And then the other chemicals I listed there is a health hazard index. I'll show you the numbers on a couple slides, mm-hmm. But they will regulate that as well.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
The MCL goal is the maximum level of a contaminant in drinking water at which no known or anticipated adverse health effects would occur. They allow adequate margin of safety. The enforceable MCL is set as close as feasible to the goal. The EPA considers the ability to measure and treat a containment as well as cost and benefits in setting the MCL. So the proposed limits, which I believe will go into effect For PFOA and PFOS, the MCL will be 4 parts per trillion. The goal is 0 parts per trillion. The hazard index calculation will be combined for Gen X, PFBS, PFHXS, PFNA, and that would be a 1.0. They don't have a unit. I would imagine it's parts per trillion as well. So I wanted to give you an idea of how low we are measuring, and there's some staggering. It's very low. So 1 part per trillion is equal to 1 droplet of water in 20 Olympic swimming pools. So there's 660,000 gallons of water in 1 Olympic swimming pool. So there's 13 million gallons in 20 Olympic swimming pools, and they're measuring 1 droplet of PFAS. So another way to look at that is if we had 13 of our water towers all full, we'd be looking for 1 water drop in those 13 towers. I also read something today that it is the equivalent of 30 seconds in 1,000,000 years is how small it is.
Brett, question?
Can you talk a little bit about where our water comes from, and do you have any ideas about how these chemicals would be getting in the water? I understand it's very, very little.
So our water, our well field is located on the south end of town on Jacoby Road. All 4 of our wells are located there. Where these contaminants may be coming from, I really can't speak on it. I have sat in a course that they have tested PFAS in rain. It's in almost everything we use. It's on our carpets, our couches, car seats, clothes. I don't know, as I get in here, so I'm going to kind of get into next what we have done before in a few for years, and what I plan on doing and what we found. And I might be able to touch on that a little bit when we get to that, if that's okay. So in 2019, we...
So Brad, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
In terms of, I mean, do we know whether like Right Pat might, I mean, I've heard that,
Yeah, that's where I think most of the issues around this area have come from the firefighting foam. I don't know if that could have affected our well field somehow. So our wells aren't considered under the influence of surface water, but I do know that well 2, when we were upgrading the plant, the water level in it was very high. So I don't know if it has some from the river right there that could have caused. That's the well. I mean, go ahead. That's the well we have found a hit of PFOS on.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the one that may be getting contaminated from the river, under some influence from the river.
Is that the lowest or the high? I mean, is it deeper than the others?
It is. It's not the deepest. It may be the shallowest. The water level is very close to the ground. It's on like maybe 60 feet or so, or less. Even if you hit digs there, you'll hit water. It is our best producing well. It's the one that, if you were to say you can only run the plant on one well, that's the one I would choose. It pumps the most. It's our best one. So in 2019, we kind of went out and did these tests on our own before we were mandated to do anything. We tested well number 2, which is what I'm talking about. We did 2 samples on that well. One of those came back with a hit of 9.67 parts per trillion. The current health advisory limit right now, until the new rules go in effect, is 70 parts per trillion. So we were very much under that health advisory.
Judy, can you back up one slide? Yeah.
Then in 2020, the EPA conducted entry point samples, so samples at our plant tap. This is water that's already been treated, getting ready to be pumped out to the town. Those results, so they came back for PFAS, let's see, it was PFHXS, PFBS, PFNA, PFOA, PFOS, and Gen X. They all reported non-detect. And that reporting limit, I believe, was at 5 parts per trillion, so nothing above 5. And I did look today, when we did that sample, the well that was on was not well number 2. Okay. So that may be some good news. Then in April of this year, we conducted, as part of the EPA's UCMR 5, we conducted samples at the entry point, and we got results back last month. And of 30 samples that they ran, 1 sample came back for PFOS at 9.2 parts per trillion. So it'd be 9 drops in 13 of our water towers. I actually got an email this weekend that we're conducting another sample as part of that through the EPA this month. So we'll be sending out another one this month. But there was that we have to for EPA. But we have also I want to get ahead of this and try to get as much information as I possibly can. So our plan moving forward, we contracted the same lab the EPA used. It's out of Indiana. And basically, we're going to sample each well and the plant tap at the same time when that well is running, so that we can see if it's in the well, if our treatment might remove it. And then we're going to do that. We probably won't be completed till December of this year if everything goes smooth. We actually sent out our first samples last week for one of those. So we'll do 3 more.
So Brad, but 9, drops per, whatever is twice above what,
Yeah.
And, since you mentioned how we can extract that, do we have any
The technology really isn't there. They're just barely able to now test as low as they are for it. The only technology that I know that they are sure removes it, is a treatment called GAC, granular activated carbon. It's a very expensive treatment. I don't even know if plants around here even do it, because it's not cost effective. To remove it, though, you would catch it in the carbon, but then you have to remove that carbon from you have to remove it, incinerate it. You still have ash, which is going to have the PFAS in it as well. So then that PFAS will just be sent to a landfill. There is no regulating on wastewater yet, but there may be some regulations coming on wastewater as well. That's the thought behind what people are saying. So I'm hopeful, best case scenario and worst, because it's our best well, but if it is only in one well, we could take that well down, possibly look into how we can prevent that well if there's a chance it would contaminate our other wells. Is there a way to, capture well that captures it before it enters our other wells, and no longer use that well? Now, it would be good to drill a new well if that's the case.
So I have a question. You talked about contaminating other wells. So are we talking different, each well is sort of tapping a different water table?
I think it's just the depths,
Okay.
more than anything. I believe it's the same aquifer.
Yeah.
but it may just be different depths, and the well 2 is not as deep, and it could be under surface water, could be under influence from surface water.
Yeah. And, you know, we love limestone around here. Is it possible that the limestone is providing some filtering?
I really can't answer that. I'm not sure. Probably not.
Okay. Okay. I was hopeful.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I've seen news articles where they're the pictures with filters in them.
Yeah.
I think those filters cost upwards of hundreds of dollars. They said remove it, they're hundreds of dollars and only last probably a month. You know, it's right now. It's just there's not a cost-effective. There's really not a way to remove it, especially if it's cost-effective. They've done some other research on some other forms of treatment, but I'm not sure if any treatment besides GAC removes it.
Right, right. This is a way out sort of question, and John, you can weigh in if you know of any possibilities. You know, but once the EPA sort of gets it all together and says, okay, we're really going to levy these requirements now, I wonder if there's the possibility of either grant dollars or government assistance, federal government assistance, or any other grant opportunities that might be present to get this special treatment. I mean, you know, it will be an unfunded mandate whenever it does come along.
And there may be ways to treat it maybe at the well. There may be a way to put something in at the well, treat it before it goes to the plant. I'm just not aware of that.
Okay.
And I can tell you this, through Ohio Rural Water, they had reached out. There is basically a class action lawsuit against DuPont for this. And a lot of smaller communities joined together and did this, and we joined that.
Okay.
So there may be some money through that awarded to us.
Okay, good.
And I'm sure as time gets closer, I'm sure EPA will have some type of grant or some type of funding.
Yeah, I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
I also wanted to update on lead just real quick. So you guys are probably aware, but come October of 2024, we have to submit to the EPA. We have to not only know all of our lead, all of our service lines, what they're made of, but what the homeowner service and after the meter is made of. Fortunately, we through a lot of hard work, the meter readers are able to, they have kind of put all this information that the EPA wants into our GIS, and I think we're in pretty good shape that once we have to, we can submit it to the EPA, and we should be in good shape there. And lead, the testing we do, we've had no issues. I think our action levels have been 5, and 15 is maximum.
Okay.
So we're well under any action levels.
Good to know.
That's all I got.
Well, it's good to know that we do have award-winning water.
Yes, that's
I
what
mean,
you did. It
it's
tastes
clean.
really good.
Yeah, it's clear. It tastes good. Good thing these folks aren't testing for PFAS. You know, at these competitions.
Or make sure we don't send our water from well
Yeah,
to.
yeah. Well, we're not the only ones going to be in this. You know,
Yeah.
as they're able to test lower and lower, a lot of communities that didn't think they had it might find it.
Absolutely.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so they're not done yet then with their refinement of the testing?
Yes.
Okay. All righty. Well, good.
All right.
All right, great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Brad. All right.
Thanks, Brad.
So now we see, does everybody get up and leave now because Brad's done?
Well, actually, before we move on, and Brad, you don't have to stay, but where are we at with how we're gonna fund that lead requirement for 2024 or whatever?
Well,
So
right now it's just to get all the information, like Brad said, between the water distribution crew and the meter readers, putting together a system at iWorks, and the GIS, they are actually collecting all the data. Once the data gets submitted to the EPA, hold on, here comes some more mandates and what we got to do. I know that we have not had any lead services like other communities have, but we've not found them. But when we do find them, we have, I think it's 72 hours to replace them. So I know Cleveland is doing 1,000 a year, and they are like years out. So we are behind the ball, but not as far as other communities. So we started the lead map, Brad and I did probably 4 years ago. No, actually longer than that, probably 6 years ago, and we did it by colored pencil. And we submitted ours, and we actually was coloring it as we was actually at the office finishing it. So we've come a long way and getting some accurate data now.
Okay. Well,
So.
old school works.
And one thing Brad didn't mention, and I'll mention, we did put stuff in the budget, but we're actually just throwing placeholders because, like Brad said, we don't know what technology we got to have to be able to get rid of this. And the other thing that I want to make sure everybody heard is this is on the water side, and we know wastewater's coming. So as soon as they figure out the wastewater, it'll be coming our way as well.
And one other thing I guess I'll highlight from a budget perspective, hopefully we'll find out what the requirements are going to be into this year, early next year.
Correct.
But we have 3 years to get everything together. So, even if it's an onerous fee or cost, we'll have a couple of budget cycles maybe. I'm not advising that we postpone it or take our time getting there, but I guess we need to see what the numbers are first.
Right.
Okay, good enough.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate you.
This kind of rolls into manager's report, but I guess I want to mention that since you talked about iWorks, that I find the platform very user-friendly, but I don't think it makes sense to a lot of our citizens. And so I wonder if maybe Ben could do one of his magic videos and talk about how iWorks works. But it kind of came up in a conversation around how do community members interact with the village. And iWorks is a great way to do that, but it's not convenient for everyone. Emails to us and whatnot also make sense, but yeah, I wondered, let's think about that, because I know when that branch fell in the middle of my street, it was great, but yeah. Okay.
All right.
On that note, it is now time for the manager's report.
All right. I'll just highlight some different things. Street Fair, we have another coordination meeting scheduled for tomorrow, and then Street Fair will happen October 14th. We should have everything ironed out and be ready to go. Phase 1 for final plat comes October 10th for the DDC development. They have actually got the water 100% done. It's on test right now, and they'll do the final test tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and then we have sampling that we got to do. And then they'll go back and tie in all the house services and get them stubbed into the lot. Sewer's 100% done. I've made some notes through here. J&T, I got this right before we come in here. They have reached out to the contractors for rebidding the project. So I know of 3 of them that have got requests for pricing.
Just a nitnoid point on that. There was the whole deal about the 3rd revision.
We did get it resolved. They are not, J&T did not respond to the 3rd addendum. So therefore, that was an extra because the bid was so under budget. We was able to add that. They did not respond. We still have that money available that we could do that work through the state money, but they're not responsible for it.
Okay.
So they're responsible for addendums 1, 2, and 4.
Okay.
So.
Great.
Marianne, I did reach out to the gas aggregation. I finally got an update, and they're hoping to have something by next council meeting. Gaunt Park, I met out there today for the playground. You'll see the village staff out there removing the old playgrounds this week, and Enid's going to go in there this week and trim up some trees. And then October 9th, the playground contractors will be starting and hopefully be done in a couple weeks. And that'll be up and running. Speaking of Gaunt Park, Tanner has reached out to 3 stonemasons to repair the front walls, so we're getting pricing on that as well. That's been destroyed for a while, so he's getting that done. The multimodal path is moving along. If you've noticed, it is concrete, it is not asphalt. There is salt joints for smoother riding and skateboarding and multimodal communication or walking. So the people in the carts, Barbara Mann was talking about, they won't have them heavy jolts. It's just to be a smooth situation. Skate park, if you could, he left. Well, I could give him the update. Hopefully I can get his information. We can reach out to him and I'll get him an update on that. We did put a 25-mile-per-hour sign on Fairfield Pike by the bridge. I've also reached out to a couple other companies to give me some quotes on some different ideals that I have. So we'll still continuing down that path, and we'll see what comes about. Let's see here, Walnut Street, the traffic delineators, I think is what Tanner calls them, at the corner of Walnut and Limestone, where the traffic decides to cut the corners right there on that sidewalk. We have now got yellow things that say don't hit the kids.
Yeah.
So they got installed, so you've seen those. Spencer Building Group is still doing sidewalks. The next section they're going to is on West South College, right across from Gaunt Park, and then that will probably be the sidewalk, end of the sidewalks for the season until next year. We got a bad recloser board for the recloser in the switch station. We have got 2 estimates right now. One is $17,000 and another one is $20,000. So we are actively looking at maybe replacing the entire recloser at a little bit higher cost, but everything comes
Can
together.
you explain what that is?
So when your power flickers and it automatically comes back on, that's a automatic switch at the switch station throwing it back in. It tries it 3 times, and if it doesn't clear, it locks it out until our guys get in and figure out what the problem is. So it's an automatic switch to be able to turn your power back on if necessary.
So we like reclosers.
You do like reclosers. So let me talk about 2 things. Hydrant flushing is, by the way, done. We finished it today. There was a breakdown of communication between the village staff and the newspaper, more on the staff, because we didn't send it to the newspaper. But there is, that was a good way to put it. So we have put out communications with Facebook, with website. I've announced it here in council. We've talked about it when the towers come back on, when the dates are. It just did not get out to enough areas. On top of that, we've had the perfect storm for hydrant flushing. Antioch did all their fire testing as we wanted them to. We was doing stuff on the south end of town. Dayton Street was vibrating the bike path or the multimodal path with a big roller, causing the Dayton Street main to then unearth all of its crud in there. We have had DDC, we filled their water main system for the entire plat. And then on top of that, we found 4 closed valves this year. So when we start flushing hydrant, we start moving everything. So we apologize for the discolored water. It has settled down, and hopefully we'll have a better next year flushing. But with that being said, I've asked everybody that I've talked to, which is quite a few, how can we better communicate with the villagers? So I've got some great suggestions, WYSO. Another lady told me today that emails from utilities, if we had a mass email list with utilities, we could send them out emails. There's some great ideas. So we're going to, as staff, look at it, get Ben and the team on top of communication so we can get that message out there. Exciting news is the hydrants downtown. Travis, I have tried to get this done for 7 years. I've talked to Cheryl Perkins before, and finally we reached out to Travis, and as part of some of his jobs, he's done it. There is a couple that don't like it, but another 2,000 that absolutely do love it. So Travis is doing a fantastic job, and if anything else, I know there's 2,000 people that know exactly where that hydrant is. So we are also taking another step because we've heard some concerns. We're actually putting some flag indicators on top of the hydrant to be able to identify that we're here, we're not camouflaged. And then we are highlighting the no parking area in and around the hydrants to better identify where they're at. So that's all I have.
Nice.
What, I don't know where I saw this, but someone raised a concern about the, well, the camouflaging,
Yes.
of the hydrants. Was that a non-issue?
It's a non-issue.
Okay, good. Good to know. Well, I'm sure all the dogs know where
They do. That they do. They're not missing.
All right.
I've got a couple
Oh, I'm sorry, Gavin. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, Johnny, just a couple things. Sure my one question about the fire hydrants. So on the gas aggregation,
Yes.
can you just, again, I'm sorry if I've missed something, but isn't that what we're working, why we started working with SOPEC?
It is. That's who I've been in communication with them.
Okay, so that's who you're working with?
Yes.
Okay, I was just, great, okay. And then, the only other thing was just I don't know, like a piece of feedback or a suggestion for these, for your manager's reports. I wonder about like just a sentence or two, or like maybe there's some sort of format of like, most important things that happened, or, something. Because like right now, it's the bullet points. I think what I'm trying to figure out is like right now, like I'm trying to figure out which of these things are sort of important, or which ones, where does it feel like there's been notable movement versus sort of this is pretty, standard stuff. So even if it's just, I gotta just throw it out right now. It's hard to sort of separate which things feel like they're notable, developments that we should be, aware of versus sort of run-of-the-mill, like that's a regular meeting that we go to. So just a thought, just something to think about as we're, working together, that I know would help me kind of get a sense of which of the things should I be identifying as particularly important. That was all.
I did think that the way you organized it, starting with the 2 goals, where there were activities on 2 of the 4 goals, was addressing that, for me.
They're actually all 4 on there.
Yep.
They are. Oh, yeah. Well, I guess because infrastructure. Oh, I didn't notice that.
Say.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a response to other feedback, primarily probably from Gavin and others, about focusing on the big 4. And while I'm speaking on that, Gavin, I appreciate your input to the packet, but somebody anyone help me. Were we, and I know there was some conversation about us providing input for our concerns, the things we're interested in, and putting dollar figures about them. Gavin, I like very much what you did, and I've started a document, but I think I'm depending on information I don't have in terms for the dollar figures for what I.
So it is under new business.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. My bad. All right, we'll talk about it in a few moments. Okay, speaking of new business, now it's time for old business. So, event requests follow-up, that's a Burns and Housh item. Gentlemen?
I can tell you, we have sent out the information to the stakeholders, and we're waiting them to come back. And then staff is going to be working on the other form to put the dollar amounts to the actual quantities.
Yeah, so I'll tee off of that and highlight that we have a events committee meeting scheduled, I think, maybe for next week, but anyway, I got to check on that. And there are a couple things that we're planning. Number one is, yeah, like Johnny said, we want to get those numbers around the event costs. What needs to come back to council is the event request policy. And Amy did a great job of putting that together. I think it's ready to go. And otherwise, I just wanted to mention, and Judy, I know you were involved in this, but getting that blurb finalized for what we would like our event organizers to put out there around well, I guess there are two things. So one is the permits, and secondly is, the RETA requirements or whatever. So I put out that memo that had kind of a draft idea of the blurb, and we want to put that together. This also reminds me, because it was in the minutes, and Mark brought this up last time, is conflating the issues around folks that are working in the village. And, we definitely want to follow up on that piece as well, and make sure that with all the construction work going on, that people are following their RETA duties, I guess, is the best way to say it. So anyway, I think we've got a meeting coming up, and we should be able to report out and bring that final policy to the next council meeting, I think. All right.
Where is that now? Is someone editing it, taking comments, or?
I mean, so I think it's pretty good. I mean, it came to us, we didn't vote on it, but it came to like a couple council meetings ago. But we did say that we were going to have another stakeholders meeting.
Gotcha.
To get feedback on that, which, I think the last time we had a stakeholders meeting, and I appreciate that Carmen emphasized that as well, that was more about the form. And so now we want to just make sure the policy and everything is makes sense to everybody.
Okay.
So.
Got you.
All right.
All right, so anything else on the event request follow-up? All right, hearing nothing. Volunteer efforts at Ellis Pond. Councilperson Brown.
It's going to be really brief, but EC has been working hard to put a plan together for efforts at Ellis. One of the things that's on the forefront is naturalizing the space that's north of the pond, in between where the sunflowers are now and the pond itself. Restorative prairie work, hopefully to start that work in the later fall, at least, preparing the soil. We have a whole plan for that. Let's see, the other piece is volunteers from Central State and they've committed to this, to possibly growing some of the plants out that we use for the riparian barrier around the pond, reestablishing the natural, reestablishing and proliferating kind of the wetland plants that are already present, but putting more there, it can help cut down on a lot of the nutrient load that's going into the pond. I don't really have anything prepared in lieu of kind of everything that's been happening, but I will at next meeting, and by then, Johnny and I will have had the opportunity to sit down and talk about this, which is what I've been meaning to do for a while.
And this is volunteers?
Right.
Volunteer process. Okay. Thank you very much. All right, new business. The hiring process discussion for permanent village manager. I've got Housh down for that. But Gavin, I know you wanted to bring this up, so Brian and Gavin.
Yeah, so I think my role is to give some background and then see where we go from there. So I think one of the things that we've, I think, had consensus around is that it makes sense to wait to make any decisions about the hiring process until the election unfolds, since we've got a new configuration of council coming up. Having been the lead on the last two hiring searches, a couple things I can share. When we, I guess this was in 2014, ultimately led to the hiring of Patty Bates. We did hire a consultant. That was a $10,000 drop on top of, the other things that we needed to do around promoting the search and, doing other aspects of that. In the second search, we felt that we learned a lot from that first one and did not feel that we needed a consultant. And we created a process that involved not only a citizen committee, but also a variety of engagements with the community. We worked with Antioch College. We worked with a lot of other folks. We made sure to tour those folks around. And so I think that's been a consistent success factor around how we've looked at the hiring process. I guess otherwise, I don't think it's in our interest to invest in a consultant again. I think we figured out what makes sense for us. And honestly, if you look at the last two searches, we ended up having pretty much the same number of applicants both times. So I will say one of the challenges with the consultant was that they had a certain way of doing it that I know Lori Asklund and other folks kind of pushed back on. So I think we've figured out a good process. But those are kind of the updates of what we've done in the past. And
Okay.
And I appreciated the one page that Judy put together. I think that laid it out pretty simply, but what we did in the past. Well, both times, I guess. But.
yeah.
Gavin, did you want to comment?
Sure. I guess I have a handful of thoughts that I'll share. They're just ideas or questions, I guess. They're not in any particular order. I guess thank you, Judy and Brian, for sharing information about what's happened in the past. I will say that I read this stuff about the council runs it process. It did make me a little nervous, just from a capacity standpoint of the list. So just to note that, I'd be interested in talking more specifically about how much time it took, and just making sure that we're not getting into something that we can't manage. But it's helpful to get a sense. I value and appreciate when you say that you think we value the process. I'm not disagreeing. I'm noting that from just the extent of the time commitment, something that Judy flagged, and I think it's worth talking about some more. I'll just say too, I feel like I could see this different ways. I could see us saying, hey, we've got somebody who's been here a long time, we're in a good position, it costs us, less money, less time to do the process. I could see saying, hey, we should, try again with firms. Seems like it's been a while since we talked to one. You'd hope that their industry would have evolved to some degree. So there's a sort of a range of options. I'll just say I would be interested in sort of public input on this. So just putting it out there that if there are folks who have perspective on how they think we should approach this, that was the reason I wanted this on the agenda, and would be interested in if anybody has feedback. Another piece, I guess, that I wonder about is, based on what I've heard from the past processes, is whether or not our pay scale is sufficient for to attract essentially high-quality candidates. So that's a question that I have, is just how are we doing in terms of our pay scale? I think one of the questions is like, we have this very small town, but we're trying to operate lots and lots of initiatives that are more, indicative of the kinds of things that are happening, in larger places, and expecting, lots of project management skills and expectations. So just throwing that out there. And then, of course, the big dynamic, I think, in trying to figure out how we approach hiring is that, right now we have an interim village manager who's also our public works director, and there's sort of like a org chart question right now. How many responsibilities do we expect for an interim, or if trying to be a long-term village manager? How many expectations do we have for a village manager who's also serving as a public works director? Is that actually is that an acceptable long-term solution? And then if so, I think it would be reasonable to expect that there would be no other moves. Are there other hires that we need to make? Are there other, what's the word, when somebody gets a promotions, or other roles that other people need to play? So I guess just bringing up when or how does some of that stuff get discussed or figured out? So those are some of the things that I'm wondering about in the context of possibility of research.
All right, great, thank you. I will say, I acknowledge that the flyer that's in the packet, that was part of the 2014 search.
And we updated that,
Okay. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
But we did that on our own. Yeah.
Okay,
So-
yeah. So I think that regardless of which way we go, I think something like that would be good. But we've definitely got some time before we move forward. The ICMA, is that the name of the organization where we could, Gavin mentioned, maybe where our pay scale would fall, maybe in comparison to others. Could we get information from them just to have some sort of baseline or ballpark?
Totally.
Okay. Okay. Cool. All right, great. Anything else on this? All right, moving on.
So,
Yep, I'm sorry.
so can I just add, when would we, for example, I think Judy wanted us to talk about it now. I think we're good. I think it's a budget question, right? It's like how much money might we set aside for some form of, if there's a search or if there's a process. So what, from your perspective, other council members, what do we do next? Like when I raise these questions, are you thinking, well, we'll just, when do we have to take a step?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, if you will, that when we begin the budget discussions, somebody ought to have that as a tickler, as a reminder that we need to discuss it and, apply some representative amount of funds towards the effort. Even if we do it all in-house, there will be some expense, so we might end up with a range of what we think it might cost for doing it in-house versus what it might cost by going with an outside firm.
Well, and we did talk about this, so Judy, did we come up with a number?
Yeah, it's
From
in the
the last
memo.
time?
So last time we spent about $35,000. So I would say, and that was in-house, so I'd say
Wait, did you, 3,500?
1,000. Yeah, we fly people here, we put them up, we have volunteer committees, we feed people, we put out questionnaires, we get them back, we tally them, we do a lot of things. We put ads in the paper, we put ads all over the place. And they're not running
So
for
half
1
of that
week.
must have been like our Alaska person, but yeah, okay.
And car rentals, I mean, we have to get people here, we have to get them back. We have to put them up while they're here. So if you added, consultant to the, so I'd say that's more like 40,000 now. And then a consultant, the last time we spent 10,000 on a consultant, I'd say you could probably say 25 is more what you're looking at. So, yeah. And we can obviously get closer numbers, but it's not insignificant.
So I think it does make sense to put money in the budget for the process, but I was assuming that we would, Johnny's only been in the position a month. And I was assuming there'd be a little time to just sort of let things play out through the end of this year, and then the decision to be made, would we even do a search process? That is a decision that council will need to make. And I was looking at this time, this sort of interim time, and thinking about how we would fill in staff capacity during this interim time that I assume that I was going to talk about in the budget request.
So what I remember from the initial meeting was that we were thinking about 6 months, and everyone can say yay or nay, but 6 months, and then at the end of that 6 months, I quite frankly, I'm just going to go on record to say that I feel like, hiring someone from a bigger place, a bigger city, a more fancy city, a more progressive city, and flying them here, I didn't realize that seems a little over the top for me, and $30,000 is a lot of money that we could do other stuff with. So I don't even want to talk about the money, and I would prefer, I know that these are questions that have to be answered, but I feel like out the gate, that was like, what are we going to do? Okay, so this is this amount of time, and then we're going to hire someone to go to do this. And I am personally not down with that. I think that I think 6 months and pulling back a little bit is important. And then also, of course, thinking about how much money we're going to spend to maybe possibly, if we hire a consultant. Of course, we have to think about it, but I don't really have anything to, I don't have anything, I was like a little diatribe, I have nothing else to add.
So let me say that our discussing the process is for budget purposes. It is not a reflection of what anybody is thinking in terms of, whether Johnny would move from interim to permanent. It's just, if we do anything that costs any significant amount of money, now is the time to consider setting aside said amount. So we're just, from a fiscal perspective, just trying to do our due diligence. And I was surprised, if I heard right, that doing it in-house costs more than...
No.
Oh, so I didn't hear right there.
No.
Okay.
No, you just
good.
add the consultant fee on
Right.
top of that.
On to what we're doing. Oh, my gosh. Gotcha.
And again, I will definitely say, I don't think the consultant added any value. We almost scrapped the process, but what I will say is I liked the process that ultimately led to our chief's hiring, and I will say that that was one of the other things I asked for, is just kind of what that expense was, because I felt like that was kind of an in-between where, we brought in some other folks. I don't think we invested a ton of money. I could be wrong. But anyway, but I also agree with what I'm hearing in general, which is that this is a decision where we can think about the budget for now, but I don't think we should, make a decision until next year. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're all in vibrant agreement about the facts. All right. Once again, if there's nothing else on this one, we're going to, I think, Chief Burge, a hiring process update for officer position.
Good evening. I'll
Good
try and keep this brief. So this evening, I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. I'm going to be giving a more detailed memo, a one-pager that'll be just all of the facts, all the information. But right now, and I don't want to go into too much detail, I just don't want to compromise public safety. But for roughly about a year, better part of a year, we have been running short at least one. I call it 1.5 because we've also had a couple officers in and out of medical leave. Those issues are a little bit unpredictable, so we've been carrying those individuals on staff, but not able to replace them. So it's kind of caused the running short that you've seen in the police schedule over the last year. As of right now, we still have that one full-time position open. We are looking at a second position that will be, I'm sorry, we have two full-time positions open. We are looking at a third position that will be opening on 10/10. Again, not to go into too much detail, but we can anticipate potentially, there's no sure deal here yet, but we can potentially be seeing up to 5 vacancies in our police department by December. That is 50% of our department. So the reason I bring this to your attention tonight is because with budget conversations on the horizon and with already talking about some hiring and staffing issues, I have a couple recommendations for how I think we can tackle this issue, get ahead of it, and although those will have impacts to our budget, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. So year to date, because of vacancies and because of, I guess, creative scheduling tactics by very good supervisors that we have, we're running about 22% under budget for our wages for 2023 and almost 21% under budget for our part-time wages. Also significantly under budget for our overtime. All of this can be attributed to the fact that we have vacancies and we're running with myself, I cover when I can, but also just trying to pinch as many positions together as we possibly can. So, in the interest of public safety, I will come to you at the next council meeting with a memo that will highlight some suggestions, including sponsoring and paying cadets to go through the academy, which is not all that unconventional. We actually did it a long time ago. I believe the last officer to have been sponsored through the academy was Officer David Meister. So, also a potential for creating some additional homegrown police officers. We might have some folks here in the community that might be interested, but can't afford to stop working or can't afford to pay for schooling itself. You'll see a couple other recommendations in there in addition to this, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up of where we currently stand and what we're potentially facing through the end of the year. So, questions?
No questions, but I feel very safe. So I think you're doing a great job.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Speaking of budget, Brian, you're leading a discussion on council budget requests, an initial discussion on those requests.
Yeah, so I guess I'll preface with Amy's goal, Amy Kemper, was to start to get a sense of what kinds of requests that we would put in the budget. The idea was that these are kind of those smaller, whether it's, council commissions or other kinds of projects. And my understanding is she didn't get a lot of feedback, but I know that Gavin put something into the packet. And so I think I will open it up for folks to talk about. And Gavin, why don't you begin, and then I have some thoughts that I'll end with.
Okay, I'm trying to find my list. Okay, I got it. So just to be clear, I guess I'd say I don't feel super strongly about any of these things. I was just trying to open a discussion. I was, we received the email from Judy asking about information. The numbers are, I'd say, ballpark at best. And I would expect these ideas to be sort of thrown in the hopper along with anything else, and to be prioritized and considered with all the other expenses. So just to be clear, I'm just throwing out ideas here. So I can touch on them briefly, I guess. Is that what would be helpful?
Really
People read them, right?
what Amy wanted for you to do was get as many of these in as possible so that she can start loading them. It takes her quite a while to load things into the budget so that then what she brings you, it's in the spreadsheet, so that then you can have those discussions. And I think some of the things you submitted, Gavin, she wanted to talk about at Finance Committee, because some of those bleed over into really what are staff requests kinds of things. So she just thought we could spend some time in that meeting, picking out what's more of a council request, what's more of a, coming in at the staff end of things.
That sounds fine. I guess I would just say, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to, these are obviously very short summaries. Would be happy to expound if it's helpful, and also would be, I guess, interested to hear if there's anybody who's like, yes, I feel really strongly about that, or no, that's a terrible idea. I think or at some point, I would like to get that kind of temperature check. It doesn't have to be today.
Real quick, this won't take very long. I think that I'm pretty sure that I'm 99% sure that I emailed Amy and probably CC Judy in it. I have a question about, and we can talk about this later, but I just want to make sure that it's out there on the table. So PACC effectively sponsored, council through PACC sponsored Art on the Lawn, Pride, and Juneteenth. Are these the numbers for these events that we're going to have to think about as a committee, right? Or is this going to be what Art on the Lawn, Pride, and Juneteenth bring to the table? So that ballpark figure is not going to have anything to do with what PACC asks for when we ask for funds.
Separate from events, you mean?
Right, is it?
No, I think she'll help you pull those things apart. Like, she's already kind of she does have a very clear idea which events regularly occur and general costs associated. And she's already started to lay those things out in the budget. So
I don't have to think about that. PACC doesn't have to think about Juneteenth, Art on the Lawn, or Pride.
Right, because we've asked stakeholders to do that separately. Earlier when we spoke about
okay, cool.
that,
All right.
they're supposed to get those numbers into us and, yes, worry about banners and projects and stuff.
All right.
Yep.
Sweet.
So Judy, based on that, so the things I have, and I alluded to earlier, I've listed some things, but I didn't put any dollar figures because I don't have any idea. One of them is paid parking, but I do know that there was, I think there was some work that Josue did to get some estimates of some apps that could be used, but I didn't have immediate access to that. So is it even worth it for me to submit those items without dollar figures?
I would, because
Okay.
you've got 3 meetings where there will be robust discussion, and if Amy says, I've got to get a ballpark from you, someone can be tasked with going out and getting a ballpark figure for what kind of project you are looking at. That can happen.
Okay.
So yes, I would.
Okay.
Otherwise, it may go off the radar and we lose it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, and to your point earlier that you shared with Gavin, I prefaced my list with, my individual things don't deviate much from the big 4, or they all fit within those umbrella areas, and I think they're probably on staff's radar already to some degree. So, yeah, not reinventing the wheel, as it were. Okay.
Mary Ann, were you gonna?
Yeah, I didn't realize that we were supposed to be sending something to Amy, before this meeting, so I apologize for that. And I would have comments about what Gavin has submitted, but I think maybe it would be not necessarily at this meeting. I could write something in to Amy, I guess, or to him. I do have information for the mediation program and the environmental commission that I can give to Amy. And I was interested in looking at staff capacity and what we might need to do to build out staff capacity. And I hadn't necessarily been thinking of it well, I'd been thinking in terms of the budget, but also that it would be a discussion with maybe some members of council and village manager. And I didn't know whether it would be necessarily part of this discussion about the budget right now. I was going to suggest that we have a conversation maybe at our next meeting about how we want to address staff capacity into the future. I mean, Gavin, for example, has suggested hiring an assistant village manager. Because I'm thinking that we might want to step back a bit to look at what are the areas where we have capacity, what are the areas that we don't have capacity that we know are important, and sort of look at it from that way. So that's sort of sliding between staffing issues and budget issues.
Yeah, and I also appreciated that Gavin brought up, the communications piece, which I know we're working on. I will kind of indicate that I have a different perspective, and Carmen, I think that your question about, thinking about some of those events and what the funding looks like should be on the radar. And I guess personally, I didn't put anything in the packet because I'm going to be suggesting that, we think about pulling back on some of our funding because, as much as we've plugged some holes, we're still bleeding money. And I think we've got to be conscious of that in this current consideration around the budget. And so I appreciate what our commissions do. And, I want to, continue to think about that funding. But there are a variety of things that we spend, I think, a good amount of money on that we need to talk about. So that's kind of where I'm at.
So,
Go ahead, Kevin.
I guess just to piggyback on Mary Ann and I guess maybe Brian's comment, just in terms of the staffing, the sort of interplay between the staffing and the budget, I guess if it's not clear, Johnny, I'm very interested in your perspective on this, and sort of how you think about the sort of staffing, size, structure, and this is one where in my nonprofit background, it's the ED works with the board, the executive director works with the board, and then the executive director sort of works with the rest of staff. I don't know where the lines are of how engaged we should be getting as a council in the sort of staffing structure. So I just would say open to feedback from anybody about sort of where our, what our purview is or where we've engaged. But I would particularly like the feedback on this one. Not right now, but whenever we get into the conversation, that's something I'm very much looking forward to.
And Johnny, I just have a question. Mary Ann and I are on the library commission. The village is the landlord for the local library. Is that part of staff's responsibility to set aside funds for maintenance? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right. Anything else on budgeting before we move on to a very timely future agenda items? All right. So speaking of future agenda items, Judy, do you have the event requests policy, volunteers, did you, Carmen said for next meeting? We'll have that. And Johnny, do you feel, I don't know if you know the answer to this. Would that be an appropriate time for a broadband update, or do we still need to get folks from Thor, et cetera?
So I've had 2 meetings with broadband. We actually got to have another one. We talked about this morning, but Amy Kemper's getting caught up, Amy Blankenship's getting caught up on some of the recorded conversations, and then we're going to have one more with broadband, and then we'll get caught up.
Okay, so I would say let's not put that on the agenda then.
No.
Okay. All right, any other future?
But yeah, I think we should like wrap up the event piece. So we should just make sure we have that meeting before the next council meeting. So,
I caution with trying to put too much ahead of this because Paige is going to be tied up with getting ready for street fair. Staff's going to be tied up getting ready for street fair, so having meetings on top of it. But I can ask Paige and staff and see if we can.
so I thought all we had to do was just update the numbers on the model.
We do, but we need to sit down and discuss it as we go through
Okay.
with Amy.
Okay.
But the final policy, I think, is pretty ready. I mean,
Yes.
that can just
Right.
root around, and then we decide if that needs to come back as a resolution or not. And then that final, how do we calculate cost part can come later. You can come down the road. There's nobody that's going to be able to come to a stakeholder meeting until after street fair, that's for darn sure.
Okay.
So we could probably bring the resolution back, is what you're saying?
Yeah, if it needs to be a resolution, which I'm thinking so, but yes, that can certainly come back for the 16th.
Gavin?
On my sort of future agenda list was, so I didn't anticipate having a new, title or whatever. I guess, is there someone who will tell me if something I have to do as vice president, or when would be like figure that out?
I'll reach out to you, Gavin.
Okay. And then in terms of the other item, I guess I wonder about at the next meeting, could we get like an update from the chief about sort of how we're addressing public safety, drinking and driving, some of the things that have been raised in the newspaper and the, public comments that we've received. Again, John, I appreciate what you're saying about the street fair, timeliness, so I guess I would like for us to have some communication publicly about what our, if there are relevant, sort of policies, procedures, and choices that we're making.
Wasn't there a report that she did, or was that just to the active
Well, you can pick
transportation?
up the village policing guidelines any time. Pretty much lays it right out, how we want things done and what the level of, that kind of level of thing, but
No, but I thought that she made a report about what the department was doing regarding traffic safety, and maybe it just came to the active transportation committee meeting that I remember. No.
So you're saying,
There's nothing in the public safety, in the local guidelines that would delineate how we would like specifically address instances related to drinking and driving, or related to, it's broad and conceptual. So I think there's a specific question.
All right, we'll let her know.
It's a reasonable question.
Okay, I misunderstood. I misunderstood what Gavin was talking about.
right.
So Gavin, you're suggesting that we have a report from the chief regarding how officers interact with people under situations when they're not fully in capacity of themselves? Is that what you're?
Yeah, I think the questions, I mean, that we received multiple, I mean, I think of the multiple forms of correspondence from citizens, the same way we received questions about, if we address issues around public safety in the last several meetings around, transportation issues. I think the question is like, how do we handle these situations? Is there discretion that's taken, and if so, whose discretion is it? And then the other interrelated question is are there any policies, or should there be any policies in terms of how, the village government, village council is in relationship to police, in these situations relating to discretion? These are the issues that people are raising. I think it would be relevant to get an update on.
Right.
How these things remain.
So I'm going to take the lead on continuing a conversation that has already begun between myself, Amy Blankenship, and Chief Burge. And Judy, I'll reach out and see if you want to be involved with that. But that conversation has begun, and I will follow up once we get a bit more traction in that conversation.
Thank you.
Sure.
So agenda, back to agenda items.
Yep.
I don't know how this fits, but I think it's important. People are very concerned about taxes, and it's very confusing. And there's in the something and out of the something, I forget what it's called, and some property taxes result in, say you're going to be paying more, some say it's not good. And I don't know, at least it seems like for the village government, it would be good if we would put out something saying these are the taxes that the village government itself has.
Outside millage, inside millage.
Outside and inside. And these would go up with housing values, these would probably stay more or less the same. I mean, it would be great if we'd have something that lists all of the taxes that all of the property taxes that people pay, and which go up and which don't.
Yeah, we did a whole shebang on that several years ago. Amy could probably put it together in about 15 minutes. So, yeah.
Amy
Kemper, yeah.
Are we committing to that being an agenda item for the next meeting?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I would not do this ahead of a levy. No, I don't think the timing is great. I would not bust out a bunch of numbers about who's going to pay more because their houses got reevaluated right before there's a levy vote.
That's why people are concerned about it.
I don't know that it's the village's job to do that.
Well, that's why I'm saying, I'm not sure whether.
Can we just make can we make that information re-available somehow?
It was on the shared, we shared all that information when there were joint meetings between Miami Township and the village. There was specific information, what millage goes where, who benefits from what levies. That is still there. You can access it just off of the YSO.com page, but I would just sit on that. If people have specific questions, they can ask the Greene County Recorder, they can ask Amy Kemper. I just don't know that we should be offering that up. It could be misinterpreted by other entities.
People feel.
Well, I agree with Judy. I think certainly this is a county issue. Yeah, we could boil it down, from a village perspective, but ultimately we're talking about, a tax levied by the county.
I don't think it hurts for us to highlight that ours is outside millage, which means we're not impacting anyone. I mean, we get a fixed amount. Don Hollister, I think in particular, did like a nice job with a document. So I'm okay about clarifying like our piece.
So was that an Amy K task?
I can ask her.
Yep.
Well, I'm just saying, I think I agree with what Judy and I think Kevin was saying. I guess I'm nervous about sort of wading into the larger discussion. Is it possible to get like the links for the relevant joint meetings be shared with council members, and that way we know what to send people? So, I mean, it sounds like you're getting questions about it, that we would all be able to share them with people easily if we have them. Would that be a step, like a sort of stepping stone or a halfway point?
Well, people are freaking out. That's what I'm saying. And it's going to probably impact the schools more than the village government because it's going to impact the levy. And I just feel like there's some shared responsibility for all of the taxing agencies in the village to help people understand. And it's complicated.
So the information is readily available on yso.com.
Yeah, that joint meeting information should be there, and that information was specifically delineated. What millage goes where, what happens if there's an increase in valuation.
Okay, so I think that we in order to not muddy the waters, I think that we could just refer people to that information. So we could just refer people. The information is there.
Put something on the Facebook page that says, here's how you can find it out. Something.
Well, that would be, yeah, I mean, a Facebook post, because honestly, nobody's going to find it on our website as it currently stands, so.
So step by step, like, here it is, this is the link, and that's how you get there. Is that what you're proposing?
I think that sounds good.
Okay.
All righty.
So would that be Ben who would do that?
I believe that is Ben, yes. Right?
Yep. Ben's on it.
Johnny, you said no?
Not yet.
Okay.
We'll talk, Ben.
All right.
And I will have some probably very brief written report regarding the housing idea of a housing coalition, and Gavin and I talked, and I expect we'll talk again before the next council meeting. I don't know that it'll be anything that will take much time, but I said that I would bring something back.
Okay, good.
All right, and we've got lots of budget sessions coming up, so.
Right. So, yeah, so we're not lacking in times that we'll be in each other's company, physically or virtually. All right, on that note, not hearing anything else regarding future agenda items, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, was that okay? What was that, Gavin? Yeah, okay, good. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone who's listened in and showed up. We appreciate you. Thank you and good night.
Maybe you had.